Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan. Today we are going to read some verses from Surah Hashr. And before I start reading them and explaining them, I can tell you out of my own experience that this is one of the most beautiful and most comprehensive introduction to the person of God. Of course, when we call or refer to the person of God, we don't have any knowledge of his being. And that is why the Quran has said that you have to concentrate on his attributes. So this is a passage from the Quran which has the most comprehensive collection of the attributes of the Almighty. And the attributes of the Almighty, the way they are discussed here, as you will see soon, that not only they are a very, very comprehensive introduction to who God is and how we should relate to him, but at the same time, since the Almighty has created human beings in his own image, as the Bible says, and which of course means that they should have some semblance of these attributes in their own personalities. So, except of course, there are a few exceptions as well, but most of these attributes, when we relate them to God, the purpose not only is to comprehend God, but at the same time try to find these attributes or at least nurture and create them in our own selves. So the verse begins with Huwallahu allazi la ilaha illahu alimul ghaybi wa shahada huwa ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They should always keep in mind that it is God besides whom there is no deity, knower of the seen and of the unseen and the seen. He is the most compassionate, the ever merciful. The very first introduction of God, of course, is something which tells us that as far as the Almighty is concerned, He is basically unique. He is peerless. There is no one who can rival Him in any way. And this is the starting point and ending point of the concept and ideology of Tawheed or monotheism. Allahu lazi la ilaha illahu. There is no God, there is no deity but Him. He alone is the creator. He alone is the person or the being who has to be worshipped. And the reason it is stated that He alimul ghaibi wa shahada. The stated reason is the next point, which is that He knows what is the seen and He knows what is the unseen. Of course, this is referring to from the point of view of human beings. What we can see is also was something that He has created, and He is the Lord of those seen things. And He has knowledge of those things that we see. And He also has knowledge of those things that we do not see. So things that come in our perception, they are known to Him. And things which do not come in our perception, they are also known to Him. So this is like telling us that He has this comprehensive knowledge of everything. What we see, what we don't see, what is the past, what is the future, what is the present. Everything is in His knowledge. And then it is said, Huwa Rahman ar-Rahim. So Rahman and Rahim, they are from the same root of Rahim. But there is a very, very poignant difference between the two. So basically, mercy is the root of both these words. But Rahman refers to mercy, which has a lot of furor in it, a lot of power, a lot of strength, something which is like gushing out like a fountain from someone. So it has that expression in it. And Rahim is again the same attribute of mercy which has in it. But here the stress is that this mercy is something which is perpetual. So because things which gush out and which have this fervor in them, they die away. And so therefore this was qualified by the next attribute, that yes, He is very compassionate, He is very passionate in fact in His mercy, and in this passion and this fervor, it does not die away as things do when they gush out of someone. But He has this mercy in its eternal form, for eternally in the same consistent form, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And then we find this repetition of the creed of monotheism instated once again by the words Huwallahu allazi la ilaha illahu. He is the very God, besides Him there is no deity. And then there is a string of these attributes which are mentioned one after the other. So let us just read them first. Al-Malikul Quddusul Salamul Mu'minul Muhayminul Azizul Jabbarul Mutakabbir. Subhanallahi amma yushrikun. He is the very God, besides whom there is no deity. So the first thing that is mentioned is Al-Malik. He is the sovereign Lord. So Al-Malik, sovereign Lord, of course, we know that sovereignty belongs to Him. There is no one who can be associated with Him. There is no rival with Him. He is one who is ruling without any interference and without any help from from others. So it's like saying that he is one in all. He is one in one and he's one in all at the same time. He has the ultimate decision making power in this world because he's the sovereign, he's the king. So Al Malik, to be translated in a very in a more familiar idiom, would be the king. So he is the king, he is the sovereign, and this is no doubt about it that he is solely the king, and that is why we acknowledge him in this respect. And then it is said, Al Quddus. Al Quddus means that he is the holy. And this actually means that there are no defects, there is nothing which is against common sense and reason and all good attributes that are found in him. So anything which is against bad attributes, anything which is evil, anything which is unbecoming is not found in him. He's holy. And holy, of course, is referring to the fact that he is muqaddas, he is quddus. There is no negative quality in him. Everything that is found in him is a positive quality. And the statement of Al Quddus, actually, the reason for this statement is to make people realize that they should not associate needless and boundless fears with him. Yes, fearing God has its own connotation, but he is not someone who is meant to be feared for the sake that he is someone who we might abhor, or we might think that he is someone who is overpowering us in any way. No, his fear actually means that we fear in making him unhappy. That fear is much like the fear that you might feel when you make your own parents unhappy. Why? Because parents feel unhappy not because of their own personal wishes, but because they think that there is something that we are doing which is against our own good. And that is what makes them unhappy, and they become angry with us, and we fear them as a result. So God being Al Quddus is not against he being feared, because, as I said, fearing the Almighty only means that he is angry with us when we are doing something which is against our own status. And that is why he becomes angry, and therefore we have to understand that this in itself is a positive attribute. So Al Quddus. And then it is said, As-Salam. He is the embodiment of peace. As-Salam, the embodiment of peace. And if he is the embodiment of peace, he would like his creation to be embodiment of peace as well. And what does that mean? Well, that would mean that we as individuals, we have to be people who bring comfort in the lives of other people. We have to be people who find that comfort in comforting other people, because God is someone who is a salam. And a salam, of course, has this ring of huge peace and tranquility about it. When you find someone to be a comforter, to be a bringer of peace, you feel that immediate elevation in your own soul. When you are connected with someone who is a salam, you feel that thing of peace in your own self as well. And today, in this world in which we are eluded with this mental peace, there can be no greater an assurance than the fact that if you associate with God, who is a salam, you are bound to get that mental comfort and mental peace, which often eludes human beings these days. The next thing which is mentioned is al-mu'min, which means the giver of tranquility. Again, that is something similar to as-salam, but there is a slight difference as well. Al-mu'min means that he provides you with tranquility. He is the one who gives you that feeling of tranquility, or that inner feeling of tranquility, once you repose your trust in him. So unless you have that iman in him, unless you have that faith in him, you will not find that tranquility coming into you. So al-mu'min is that he gives you tranquility on the condition that you have your own faith in him as much as possible. So tranquility is something which is a result of that faith. If you have faith in the Almighty, you would always think that he is thinking the best for us. If there is a time of trial, if there is a time of test, even then it has to be construed as something which is in our favor, because trials and tests, they bring the best out of us. They make us stronger than before, and at the same time they provide us this opportunity to come closer to the Almighty. So when he is al-mu'min, when he is someone who is providing you tranquility, then of course that tranquility will only be with you as long as you have that feeling of faith in him and you trust him the way he should be trusted. The next thing which is mentioned is al-muhaymin, which is the guardian. Again, that is a beautiful feeling that comes to us, that he is guarding us, he is protecting us, Yes, at times he lets that protection go away, and that again is because he wants to try and test us, but not always. On most occasions, he's protecting us. He's the guardian, and you'll find that this particular attribute is also mentioned in the Quran for the Quran itself. And when it is mentioned for the Quran, al-Muhaymin, it means that it guards the Quran. It guards previous scriptures. The Quran is like a guardian on the previous scriptures. It does not in any way let them overrule it. So it's basically guarding them. In a very similar way, the Almighty is also Al-Muhaymin. He's protecting us, He's guarding us. He is our Savior. He is someone on whom we can really rely and trust. And remember, when something is going wrong, this does not go against the concept of being Al-Muhaymin, because as I just said, these trials and these tribulations, when they come to us, they are meant for our own betterment. At times, they are meant to make us stronger. At times, they are meant to make us realize that we might be doing something wrong in life. And at times, they are meant to bring us closer to the Almighty. For in times of trial, we come closer to Him. So therefore, if He is Al-Muhaymin and He's guarding us from any evil thing from happening, and then at times He lets certain trials come to us, it is not against the fact that He is not our guardian or He's our guardian. He is in fact still guarding us. And then it is said Al-Aziz, which is the mighty. And very next attribute is also, which is similar to this attribute, is Al-Jabbar. So Al-Mighty is, Al-Jabbar is mighty, and Al-Mutakabbir is extremely, or Al-Aziz is in fact the mighty, and Al-Jabbar is extremely powerful. As you can see, these are very close to one another. So Al-Aziz would mean that there is no one who can overcome him, no one who can dominate him. Yes, he can dominate others, but no one can dominate him. This is the power that he has. And this is especially in reference to the idolaters of Mecca of those times, because they thought that their own deities and their own intercessors would be able to win favor for them and dominate the Almighty in this respect. But here, the thing which is being mentioned here is that he is Al-Aziz. He will do what he would like to. And at other instances, it is qualified by words that whatever he does is also governed by his wisdom. So yes, he's mighty and he's powerful, but his might and his power are always governed by his wisdom. So no one should think that he is someone who will be led by other people's desire, by other deities' desires or intercessors can in any way affect him. And at the same time, these idolaters also used to think that these mountains and these strong structures, how can they be done away with near the day of judgment? So they are also told that the power of the Almighty and the extreme strength that He has, this is nothing before that strength. And at other instances in the Quran, we know that on the day of judgment, these mountains will become like carded wool. And so therefore, this is something which is absolutely easy and nothing difficult for the Almighty. He is Aziz and He is Al-Jabbar, and he dominates. And not only these physical phenomena does He dominate, but at the same time He dominates in imposing His will without any obstruction or without any interference from other deities. And Al-Mutakabbir, which means the most high. Al-Mutakabbir, of course, the word takabbur, and we know means arrogant and someone who is unbecoming in this respect or haughty. But for God, Al-Mutakabbir means that He is, since the Most High is supreme. So therefore, for Him, if He calls Himself to be Al-Mutakabbir, it would be true. If we call ourselves to be mutakabbir in any way, this would mean that we are elevating ourselves, which we are not. But because the Almighty is always in that exalted state that He is in, so therefore al-mutakabbir means that He is the most high, and there is no authority which is beyond Him. And finally, it is said, Subhanallahi amma yushrikun, exalted is God above what they state as partners. So once again, these idolaters of Makkah, the Bani Ishmael, who were involved in idolatry and polytheism, they are told that, remember, with these attributes, they should know there's none who can find himself to be a pair to the Almighty, and He is far above these partners which they associate with Him. Once again, we find the Quran now repeating his attributes in a different way, and that is, Huwallahul Khaliqul Bari'ul Musawwir Lahul Asma'ul Husna Yusabbihu lahu ma fis samawati wal ard wa huwal Azizul Hakim. He is the God, Huwallah, He is the God, Al Khaliq, the designer, Al Bari, the creator, Al Musawwir, the shaper. So if you look at the sequence, you'll find that this is in order. It is in a proper arrangement we design something, then we create something, and then we shape something. This is how human beings also work. So the Almighty also tells us that as far as He is concerned, He first designs someone or anything that He'd like to accomplish, and that design is then given its proper creation. It comes into existence, and once it comes into existence, it travels the shape, or it comes into the shape. It assumes the shape which is destined for it, which also tells us that things in this world, they grow in progression, and this is how the Almighty has made this world also, that slowly and surely it is progressing towards the Almighty Himself, which means that on the day of judgment, this is how matters would stand, that we will be passing through various phases and then facing Him. Lahul Asma'ul Husna, that all good attributes belong to Him. Yusabbihu lahu ma fis samawati wal ard, and the heavens and the earth glorify Him, and He is mighty and wise. So you can look at the string of attributes. If I count them, Allahu allazi la ilaha illahu, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Alimul Ghaib, Al-Shahada, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, As-Salam, Al-Mu'min. So all these attributes, the way they occur one after the other, as they have been stated in these verses, they form a very, very comprehensive introduction, and finally ending up with these words that all good attributes belong to Him. He is mighty, and the final attribute which is mentioned is Al-Hakim. He is the wise. He is replete with wisdom, and therefore we have to rely on Him. If something is not being done the way we would be expecting it to be done, then there is some wisdom behind it. So with these words, we come to end to this section of study, and now we can open the mic for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad, for a beautiful explanation of the verses. We will start our question with a question that I received in the chat, and that is, if after 4 days there is no period blood and complete dryness, can we just shower and fast, or do we have to wait for 7 days?
Yes, I mean, this is something which varies from person to person. If the period has stopped in less than 7 days, that is absolutely fine. You just need to make sure that they have stopped, and there is no such spotting, and if they have completely stopped, then you don't need to count those 7 days.
Our period starts during the day we are fasting. So should we break the fast, or should we keep the fast?
Yes, unfortunately, if that is the case, that your period starts during the fast, then you would need to break the fast and then make it up in some other part of the year, or maybe if they finish within the Ramadan, then of course you will resume the fasting.
Thank you. Our first question, participants, Ajmal, please unmute.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Shehzad. I just want to ask, आपने बोला था about God being the best decision maker, and sometimes we have to, hikmat हमें जाननी होती है in His decision.
Right.
But sometimes, in theory, this all sounds very easy to understand. But sometimes, in timelines, you run into people that are really good for you, right? But उस time पे your timeline, you are growing, right? Or you're not at that point where you want to be, and you lose good things in life, right? So आपको चीजें पूरी जिंदगी याद रहती हैं, and you can't get those things, right? Because you were not at that point at that time of life. So how do you? I know उसमें भी कोई हिकमत ही होती है, but how do you make sense with that and make peace with that?
Actually, you see, the thing is that if you look at your past, you'll on many occasions you would realize that if things didn't go your way and they went God's way, you always wish that yes, it was better that it happened God's way, and you were not granted your wish. This is an experience that we all share many a time. So by analogy, whenever you come to such occasions in which you are not able to understand the wisdom somehow, and you're not able to reconcile, it is here that you need to trust God and think that yes, there must be some wisdom once again. I'm not being able to grasp that wisdom at the moment, but maybe later in life I'll get to know that. And even if I don't get to know that, I trust God, because this is how I myself have felt in my past life, and this is how the Quran tells me that He is. You see, there is another beautiful verse of the Quran on very similar line. It tells us, Ahsan takrahu khairan wa huwa sharrun lakum, Ahsan tuhibbu shay'an wa huwa khairun lakum, which means that at times you like a thing, but it is not good for you, and at times you hate a thing, but it is actually good for you. And then the closing words are, Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. God knows and you do not know. We, in our limited knowledge, at times think that things are good or bad relative to what information we have. So I think this is again a matter of trust, and that trust is strengthened when you look back in our lives and see that many a time things, when they happened against our wishes, they ultimately proved good in our own for our own fortune.
Rafia? Rafia Fajar, you may ask your question.
Dr. Shehzad, sometimes you find it very difficult to explain with all these attributes, God, merciful, Rahim. Then you meet a couple who desperately want a child, everything seems to be normal and they can't have children. And then you see other people with 4, 5 children and they don't even, they say,
Right.
why is Allah doing this to me? How do you explain that this is the kind, merciful God, the giver, everything? Sometimes you can't explain it to them.
I think the best thing that one can do in this regard is to read those relevant portion of Surah Kahf, in which Khidr and Musa had that dialogue, in which Khidr did certain things as a prophet, as an angel of God, which which could not be reconciled by Moses in any way. And when Khizr told him the wisdom behind those things, he said, "Yes, well, this is something which was, this is something which was God's scheme, and he could not have appreciated the scheme without being told that this is how God alternatively views things." So it's like at times trusting God by looking through these three incidents. So the first one we all know was that he actually punctured a boat or a ship so that people would would have the danger of getting drowned. But when he was asked, when Moses asked him that why did you puncture that ship, because this could have led to a big calamity, he said that, well, there is a pirate in front. There is a king who's turned a pirate, and he's confiscating all such ships. So when I punctured this ship and made it defective, it would escape the grasp of, or the clasp of that tyrant, because he would not take these defective ship. So the point that he was telling us, that apparently that puncture was something which would have drowned those passengers or those travelers or those voyagers, but they did end up saving themselves from a bigger calamity, and that was the ship would have been confiscated. So you see, it's like lifting the veil from certain incidents, and there are two other also mentioned, which you can read in Surah Kahf. But I would always advise people that this is how we have been instructed and told. Moses himself was sent to the Bani Israel, or the Israelites, who were extremely impatient, and we know from this incident that Moses too had this impatience in him. So it was God who instructed him through one of his angels, who was Khidr, and this is how he lifted the veil and exposed the wisdom of certain things. And I think this is how we should learn that things, they do happen for the better. At times we are not able to understand them, but we have to consign them to the Almighty.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Mansoor Ahmed, you can ask your question now.
सर, कल मैं टेलीविजन पे सुन रहा था, उसमें एक स्कॉलर कह रहे थे कि कुरान पूरी दुनिया को टेक ओवर करने के लिए आया है। तो इस स्टेटमेंट की क्या हैसियत है?
ये तो आप उस स्कॉलर से पूछिए जी, मैं तो उनकी तरफ से जवाब नहीं दे सकता।
सर ठीक है, आपकी स्टेटमेंट ठीक है, लेकिन मकतबा फराई यानी कुरान को क्या किस तरह देखता है? क्या वो टेक ओवर करने के लिए नहीं है, या
ऐसा तो कोई चीज नहीं है। असल में एक गलत फहमी इससे पैदा हुई है कि जो नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के बाद जो सहाबा ने मामलात किए रोम और ईरान से, वो असल में अहले हक की तरफ से या अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से एक पनिशमेंट थे। यानी अल्लाह ताला ने अपने रसूलों को इस मकसद के लिए भी मबूस किया है कि हक के जो मुनकरीन हैं, जो जानते बूझते हक का इनकार करते हैं, और वो हक जो अल्लाह ताला ने रसूलों के ज़रिए से पहुंचाया है, तो उनको वो दुनिया में सज़ा देते हैं। तो रोमा ईरान पे जब हमला किया गया सहाबा की तरफ से, तो उनको हक के इनकार की सज़ा दी गई थी। वो दुनिया को या तो किसी लिहाज से कॉन्कर करने या जहांगीरी के पहलू से नहीं किया गया था, या तौसीए हुकूमत के लिए नहीं किया गया था, वो तो मुनकरीन हक की सज़ा के तौर पर था। तो ये चूंकि इसको इस नए एंगल से, मुख्तलिफ एंगल से देखा गया, और ये कहा गया कि जैसे मजहब जो है वो तख्त तराज करने आया है और कॉन्कर करने आया है, उसी की बाज़गश्त आप आज भी सुनते हैं कि जैसे सहाबा ने रोम और ईरान का फतह किया, तो वो एक नामुकम्मल काम था, या उन्होंने एक काम अपनी हद तक करके छोड़ा, अब हमें बाकी दुनिया को फतह करना है। तो ये असल में वो जो रसूलों की ख़ास हैसियत है, جس میں اللہ تعالیٰ مشرکین جو ہوتے ہیں رسولوں کے مخاطبین کو تباہ کر دیتے ہیں، اور جو معاہدین ہیں ان کو وہ باقی رکھتے ہیں لیکن ان کو سبسروینٹ بنا کے رکھتے ہیں۔ تو اس پوری کی پوری سنت کو، جس کو اللہ تعالیٰ سنت اللہ کہتے ہیں، یہ اللہ تعالیٰ کی سنت ہے، اس کو نہ سمجھنے کی نتیجے میں یہ خیال پیدا ہوا، اور آج ہمارے ہاں جو جتنے بھی جہادی گروہ ہیں، چاہے وہ اسامہ بن لادن اور ان کے ساتھیوں کی باقیات ہوں، یا ISS ہوں، یا القاعدہ ہوں، یا اس طرح کی تمام تنظیمیں ہوں، وہ اصل میں اسی غلط فہمی کا شکار ہیں، اور وہ صحابہ کے اس عمل کو اسی مفہوم میں سمجھتے ہیں کہ ان کو بھی ان کی پیروی میں دنیا کو فتح کرنا ہے، جبکہ جیسے میں نے عرض کیا یہ ایک لمبا موضوع ہے، اس پر آپ بہت ساری گفتگویں ہو چکی ہیں، آپ دیکھ سکتے ہیں۔ یہ خاص رسولوں کے بارے میں اللہ تعالیٰ کی سنت ہے جو کہ قرآن میں بیان ہوئی ہے، اور انہی کے ساتھ خاص ہے، یہ ہم سے اس کا تعلق نہیں ہے۔
Alright, Ahmed, you may ask your question.
السلام علیکم۔ مختلف ہے، میں نے یہ آپ کو واٹس ایپ پہ بھی سینڈ کیا تھا۔ سر بات یہ ہے کہ ہمارے گاؤں میں چونکہ ایک لڑکی کا نکاح ہوا تھا کچھ 4-5 سال پہلے، لیکن ان کا ڈائیورس بھی ہوا سر، مطلب 1-2 سال
ڈائیورس نہیں ہوا یا ہوا؟
وہ مطلب سپریٹ زندگی گزار رہے، ان کا ڈائیورس ہوا ہے سر۔ ان کی ایک بچی ہے، ایگزیکٹلی سر، ان کی اب ایک بچی ہے سر۔ اب ہم چاہتے ہیں کہ چونکہ وہ بچی اب سفر نہ کرے، چونکہ ہم چاہتے ہیں کہ ہم کچھ 2-3 فرینڈس آپس میں مل کر یہ مشورہ کرتے ہیں کہ ہم آپس میں ان کو ریکنسائل کریں، ہم مطلب ان کا پھر سے وہ نکاح کرائے۔ کیا اس میں کچھ پرابلم تو نہیں ہے؟ کچھ لوگ کہتے ہیں کہ ان کو حلالہ وغیرہ کرنا ہے، حلالہ وغیرہ، تو میں نے ان کو مشورہ دیا تھا کہ اس میں کچھ حلالہ وغیرہ کرنے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے، لیکن وہ اس پہ اصرار ہی کر رہے تھے۔ اب آپ سے میں یہ جاننا چاہتا ہوں کہ اس بارے میں ہمیں کیا کرنا چاہیے سر؟
دیکھیں، اس کا تعلق تو اس چیز سے ہے کہ طلاق جو تھی اس کی نوعیت کیا تھی۔ عام طور سے ہمارے ہاں جن ممالک میں طلاق غلط طریقے سے دی جاتی ہے اس کو وہ سرٹیفائی کر دیتے ہیں کہ 3 طلاق ایک وقت میں نافذ کر دیتے ہیں، اور وہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ جب تک 3 طلاق نہ دی جائیں اس وقت طلاق واقعی نہیں ہوتی۔ تو اگر اس طرح سے طلاق دی گئی ہے اور یا تو پھر تو ظاہر ہے کہ وہ طلاق ہم اس کو ایک ہی شمار کریں گے اور دوبارہ شادی ہو سکتی ہے۔ لیکن اگر 3 طلاقوں کا کانسیپٹ اس طرح سے ہے کہ آدمی نے سوچ سمجھ کے دی ہیں، اور یہ اس نے کہا ہے کہ میں اپنے تینوں حق استعمال کر رہا ہوں، تب بھی یہ غلط ہے۔ تب ہم اس کا بیان لیں گے اور اس سے ہم پوچھیں گے کہ بھئی تمہارا مقصد کیا تھا؟ ایک دفعہ تم نے اگر دینی تھی تو تم نے 3 دفعہ دینے کا تمہارا کیا علت کیا تھی اس کی؟ تو اگر وہ یہ وجہ بتاتا ہے جی مجھے تو بتایا ہی گیا تھا کہ 3 طلاقیں جب تک میں نہیں دوں گا طلاق ہوتی نہیں ہے، تو پھر بھی ہم یہی کہیں گے کہ اصل میں طلاق اگر ہوئی ہے تو ایک طلاق واقع ہوئی ہے، اس کے بعد دوبارہ وہ شادی کر سکتے ہیں۔ لیکن آپ کس ملک سے ہیں؟ ہندوستان سے ہیں؟
یس سر، ایگزیکٹلی سر، کشمیر سے، ہندوستان سے۔
آپ ہاں، تو وہاں پہ جو قانون ہے اس کے مطابق تو ظاہر ہے کہ وہاں مشہور کیس جو ہوا تھا شہر بانو کیس غالباً، جس کے اندر یہ سارا معاملہ زیر بحث آیا ہے، تو اس کو آپ اسٹڈی کر لیں۔ وہاں پہ ہندوستان کی عدالتوں نے بھی 3 طلاقوں کے بارے میں ایک فیصلہ دیا ہوا ہے، اور اگر آپ اس قانون کے مطابق چلیں گے تو جہاں تک مجھے یاد پڑتا ہے انہوں نے بھی اس کو ایک شمار کیا تھا،
یس سر، ایگزیکٹلی
اور اس پہ تبدیلی کی ہے انہوں نے۔
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
سر۔
Shehzad. There's a question a brief question in chat. It says that today was my fourth day of my period, and I got only 1 or 2 drops of blood. So should I start fasting from tomorrow or no?
I think you should wait for tomorrow and see if the spots completely go away. Hopefully they should, and then you can keep the fast.
Thank you. Ahmed, you may ask your question now.
السلام علیکم سر۔
وعلیکم السلام۔
سر میرا کوشچن تھا کہ جو سورہ شورا کے اندر یہ خلیفہ منتخب کرنے کا جو اصول بیان کیا ہے، تو اس کو کچھ اسکالرز جو ہیں وہ اس طرح سے انٹرپریٹ کرتے ہیں کہ جو مسلمانوں کا مشورے سے یہاں پر جو مراد ہے وہ پڑھے لکھے جو ایلیٹ طبقہ ہے مسلمانوں کا، تو اس کے ان مسلمانوں کا مشورہ شامل ہونے کا یہاں پر ذکر ہے، نہ کہ جو عام لوگ جو پڑھے لکھے نہیں ہیں، جاہل ہیں، جو کچھ نہیں جانتے، تو ان کو رائٹ ٹو ووٹ کا حقوق ہونا چاہیے۔ تو اس طرح سے وہ پڑھے لکھے اور جو ان پڑھ لوگ ہیں ان کے رائٹ ٹو ووٹ میں جو ہے ڈفرینشیٹ کرتے ہیں، تو کیا ان کا اس
میں آپ کا
آیت سے یہ
سوال سمجھ
استدلال
گیا ہوں۔
کرنا صحیح؟
جی دیکھیں، آیت تو بڑی سادہ ہے، وہ ہے امرہم شورا بینہم، یعنی مسلمانوں کی طرف اشارہ کر کے وہ یہ کہتی ہے کہ ان کا نظام ان کے مشورے پر مبنی ہوگا۔ یہاں کوئی تخصیص اس کی نہیں ہے کہ پڑھے لکھے لوگ ہیں یا جاہل ہوں یا کون ہوں، اس سے قطع نظر قرآن تو ایک سادہ بات کہہ رہا ہے کہ جو بھی وہ ہیں، اگر وہ پڑھے لکھے ہیں، اگر وہ جاہل ہیں، اگر وہ آدھے ان پڑھ ہیں، اگر وہ پورے ان پڑھ ہیں، اس سے قطع نظر وہ تو ایک جنرک سٹیٹمنٹ دے رہی ہے، آیت بتا رہی ہے کہ جیسے بھی مسلمان ہیں उनका निज़ाम उनके मशवरे पर मबनी है। जैसे जैसे वो अपने शऊर को बेहतर करेंगे वो निज़ाम ही बेहतर हो जाएगा। लेकिन कोई किसी किस्म की एरिस्टोक्रेसी कहते हैं कि चंद मुंतखब लोग जो हैं, जो किसी पैमाने का पूरा उतरते हैं, उनको ये हक के वोट दिया जाए। कुरान तो इसको सिरे से बयान नहीं करता। वो तो ये राइट हर एक को देता है, वरना उसको कहना चाहिए था अमरुहुम शुरा बैनहुम में, उनका निज़ाम उनके पढ़े लिखे लोगों के मशवरे पर मबनी है। ये तो कहा नहीं उसने। उसने तो कहा है उनका निज़ाम उन्हीं के मशवरे पर मबनी है, तमाम मुसलमानों की तरफ इशारा करते हुए।
Muhammad Shadab, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
वालेकुम सर।
वालेकुम सलाम।
सर जैसा हमने कुरान से सीखा है कि जो भी मतलब हिसाब किताब होगा वो जो क़यामत के दिन, क़यामत के बाद, लेकिन तो ये अक्सर हदीस बयान करते हैं कब्र के अंदर 3 सवाल होंगे, उसकी क्या हैसियत है सर?
देखिए, बहुत दफ़ा हम यहाँ पे डिस्कस कर चुके हैं कि कब्र के जो अज़ाब का ताल्लुक है ये उन लोगों से है जिनका दुनिया में हिसाब किताब हो जाए, और ये वो लोग होते हैं जो रसूलों के ज़माने में ज़िंदा होते हैं, क्योंकि अल्लाह ताला उन पर हक़ भी वाज़े कर देते हैं, और हक़ वाज़े करने के बाद अगर वो इनकार करें तो दुनिया में उनको सज़ा मिलती है, मरने के बाद जो बरज़ख की ज़िंदगी है उसमें भी मिलती है और आखिरत में मिलेगी। तो ये ख़ास कैटेगरी है। रह गए हम लोग, तो हमारा जो हिसाब है वो आखिरत पर मौखर किया गया है, वहाँ पे हमारा हिसाब किताब होगा। उसके बाद जो भी नतीजा निकलेगा तो आपको जज़ा और सज़ा दी जाएगी। हमें बरज़ख में सुला दिया जाता है, हमें कोई उस ना अज़ाब मिलता है ना जज़ा मिलती है। जिन लोगों का दुनिया में हिसाब किताब हो जाए, कब्र का जो अज़ाब है, जो असल में बरज़ख का अज़ाब कहना चाहिए उसको, वो उन्हीं लोगों से मुतल्लिक है जिन जिन लोगों का हिसाब दुनिया में हो जाता है, और वो रसूलों की, अंबिया की मुखातिब अक़वाम है वहाँ पे।
जी सर, एक मिनट।
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Hadi Haroon, you may ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
वालेकुम
My
अस्सलाम।
question to you is basically, I wanted to know how you learned the Quran, because when I read the Quran, I read it with the tarjuma, I read it with the translations, and I wanted to ask you that when you read Quran, do you have to translate in your head to English, or is it you know it like English or Urdu that you translate it to?
No, we don't need
That's,
to translate it. We understand directly.
yeah, because it's like a third language, right? It's with anything, right? I haven't learned it,
Yeah.
but what I do is from the Quran app, I have the word by word on the Quran, and I have to, as in like alladhina amanu, those who are. So that's how I learned it. But I want to do it like with easy as Urdu or English. So how do you do that?
There are many apps which teach you Quranic Arabic, in which you can learn Quranic Arabic, in the sense that when the Quran is being read, you don't need to have recourse to any translation, but you directly understand the Arabic words from their text.
Right.
So
Yeah, because
there
even,
are teach yourself Arabic Quranic books as well. Then there are websites. Then there are thousands and thousands of apps, especially in the last couple of years, courtesy COVID, when people could not go out. So a lot of work that was done was teaching people online. And for that, you can just Google or maybe check at your iStore or Play Store, and you'll find a lot of apps which just teach Quranic Arabic.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Baran, you may ask your question now.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, my question is about we know in these verses that Allah is the most wise, the best designer, the best of creators. And there's also this one verse in Surah Anfal that says, I'll read the translation. O Prophet, say to whoever is in your hands of the captives, if Allah knows any good in your hearts, He will give you something better than what was taken from you, and He will forgive you, and Allah is forgiving and merciful. Can we take from this verse that if you got something from Allah and Allah took it away, and that Allah then will replace it with something better because it says like a test?
No, actually, this verse is very specific. It relates to the prisoners of war in a certain way, but it cannot be generalized. But other than that, without using this verse, this is always a possibility. When God takes something away from you, at times He does replace it with something better, but at times He does not. Because you see, this world is made on the basis of trial and test. So it's not always that you get rewarded or compensated for something that was done wrong to you, because these are forms of trials and tests that we face. So therefore, this could be a possibility that if something is taken away from you, it could be replaced, and there is an equal possibility that it would not be replaced, because God wants to check you and try you and test you, that you thank Him in good circumstances and in comforting circumstances. So He wants to check whether you still thank Him when circumstances are not that good, and you have to come and face adverse currents of life.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, Dr.
much.
Shehzad. Salman Aziz, you may precisely ask your question.
So regarding the yesterday's talk, just want to have a clarity. What is the difference between good humor and making fun of somebody, sir?
I think the best judge is your own conscience. When you are probably expressing good humor, the person to whom you are humoring, he is also laughing and you are also enjoying, and it's all in good faith. But when you make fun of someone, you already know that you are trying to belittle that person or demean that person in some way. So there's a fine line at times. I think the best judge of that fine line is that red light pops up in your own conscience and it tells you that you are now crossing that line. So if you know that, well, when you're doing something in good faith and humor is being exchanged, this is something that free flows between the two people, and they are absolutely fine with it. But when you are actually crossing the limits, there is this thing in which the other person might not react, or he might feel hurt from inside, but you know yourself that you are crossing that limit. So I think the best judge is our conscience.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. With this, we will conclude our today's session. Thank you, all the participants. Allah Hafiz. See you all tomorrow.
Allah Hafiz.